Hello, everybody. Today we have a very interesting session. We are going to compare Xero with Zoho Books. When we are talking about anything with finance, we need the big guys. Simon Fedorovsky is with us. How are you, Simon?
Good, good. Thank you for having me.
So lots of people actually liked the previous session that we created about QuickBooks versus Zoho Books. And we are going to stay with the same 8 topics. We'll talk about pricing, we'll talk about user adoption, all the things that are related to that. For the people that don't know me, my name is Lior Izik. I am the founder of Amazing Business Results. We are a Zoho premium partner. We have offices in Europe, Canada, and also the US, operating since 2013. Simon, a few words about your company?
Absolutely. Hello, everyone. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Simon. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Sphere Consulting. We're a bookkeeping firm based in North America that specializes in accounting system implementations and internal finance. So bookkeeping, internal accounting, and doing system implementations. So moving companies from one to the other. Been around for 9 years, growing steady and strong, and it's good to be here. So thank you for having me.
Okay, so point number one is owner-led versus accountant-led businesses. So with QuickBooks, we talked about that QuickBooks is loved by accountants, and we came to the conclusion it's because that accountants know QuickBooks, and this is what they feel comfortable with, and
Yeah.
because they are squares and they don't like to make changes, they are staying with it. Business owners actually like Zoho Books. Now, with Xero, from what I had the chance to work with business owners, they actually like Xero. So business owners and accountants like Xero. What's going on with it? What is your take on that?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I think it's actually a couple of different points on that topic. So when you look at Xero, it's been around for quite a while on the accounting end, and it dominates in the UK market, in the Europe market. It's very, very strong there. The way that they've positioned their software is to be actually more user-friendly on the actual implementations and integration side. So their marketplace has tons of offerings there versus something like Zoho Books, where it's only got about half of what they can offer on the marketplace. Now, the problem with that is you're catering to business owners that can then quickly plug and play options, but the setup is not as easy. So Xero setup is a little bit more tedious than Zoho Books. And that's why accountants are like, okay, well, if you compare it to Xero to QuickBooks, they say QuickBooks is much easier because it's much, much faster to get up and running. Also, the legacy clients that were on QuickBooks Desktop can be moved to online fairly straight, like easily. So those are the two main components there. So I do think that the ones that are the business owners that are more on the creative side, they love Zoho Books. Your options with automations, coding, integrations within the ecosystem, and externally, what you can do with the numbers makes more sense. So I think that growing and doing that, that's why Zoho Books has had a bit of a rougher time with the accountants, but they have a ton of love and it's growing. But obviously, people who stick with something that works, like you said, a lot of us are squares. We do tend to stick with things like QuickBooks Online, where it's very, very easy to navigate. So it's a very interesting case
Just
because,
limited.
yeah, just exactly. And that's the problem, right? So when you get to that stage and step, you then start to think, and we'll talk about that down the road, obviously. Okay, what's next then, right? Whether it's Xero, QuickBooks, FreshBooks, even like, the older Sage platforms that have been around for a while that were selling very well, then you get to a point where you're like, okay, well, what do I do now, right? So that's where you come to us or you come to you to talk about, okay, what ERP do we go with or what systems should we start with?
Yeah, yesterday I talked to a customer. They are selling fireplaces, and
Uh-huh.
they reached a point that they are big enough and they want to start manufacture.
Mm,
And now they are on QuickBooks Online. So they can't. So they
yeah,
try to
yeah,
find workarounds. They created something shitty that didn't work for them. Their accounting system broke. Obviously, you will meet him in the next few days. But it's a problem, right? So now you
yeah.
need to move, and moving accounting system. I think there are two systems I don't want to move, if I can. Accounting and mail.
Yeah.
Those two systems are not fun to move, but in some
Yeah.
cases, you're just stuck. Like
Yeah.
I wanted to be able to report profit and loss on each line of business, and QuickBooks was not able to give it to me.
Yeah.
Also, I found out
Correct.
that there was no backups on QuickBooks. Huge problem, right? For me,
Yeah.
it's a no-go. So, and I moved. Let's go back to Xero. Now, the next point with Xero will be pricing. I do know that Xero is a bit more expensive than Zoho Books, but from the other side, they have other perks. Can you talk about it a little bit?
Absolutely. So Zero's price point is a little bit more on the higher tier end compared to everything else in the market. It's competing against QuickBooks, obviously, right? So Zero and QuickBooks, similar price points. When you look at Zero's capability, it's open-ended for small companies to be able to add all of their users, right? So their ability to add users, much easier, much more cost-effective per user basis. When you look at Zoho Books, the cost of it is significantly smaller, but you have to pay per user. So I think that's kind of a good thing. It comes out with, 3 to 5 out of the box, and then you can add more and pay for more if you need it. But one topic that you and I cover a lot is how many people do you really need in the system, especially in accounting? You want to
I hope not
control.
much.
Exactly, right? So that's why Zero caters to the small to medium size, and Zoho Books is more geared towards small to medium with the idea of growing the medium to larger, right? So I think it's just two different approaches that really don't really talk the same language, but are doing the same thing. Now, on that same topic of pricing, um, it does make sense to go with Zero sometimes, right? So it depends on the business, but going back to your fireplace idea, right? Company that's growing really rapidly, they're now in manufacturing. You're going to hit those limits, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. Actually, the next point, growing the teams, user management, and all that. I think it's really important to touch on that.
Okay, so the next point will be growing teams and user management. Um, I will tell you where I'm coming from with Zoho Books. I can have another user in the system and I can give them laser point permissions on what they can do. You can view timesheets without creating them. You can see only projects in the system without whatever ABC. I can really create a laser tailored kind of permission system, which is super powerful for me as a business owner. Uh, I can add users with a click of a button. If people are having the Zoho One license, they will be added automatically to the Zoho book system with a click of a button. Really simple. So that's my take about the Zoho side.
Going to your point about simplicity, Zoho Books is not just simple, it's also extremely complex in that they are really trying to kick up the gear on the user control side towards the enterprise level. So, for example, having the ability to email out of the system by module, you can control it. So if I don't want my billing department to be able to, I want them to just view the sales orders, but not email them out, then I could do that. That can be limited within the system. It's super helpful. When we look at that versus anything else in Xero, it's very basic user customizations where you can, by module, you can do a couple of different things, but you can't control a lot of what we can do in Zoho Books. Now, let's look at the two systems from like a market perspective, adding custom fields, right? And doing all those sorts of things, that adds a layer of complexity. On Zoho Books' end, in recent year, I think last year in 2025, they managed to add the ability to allow visibility by custom field for specific user
Mhm.
roles. So it takes that user access and permissions one step deeper so that you can actually control the back end of it a little bit better. So again, what kind of market are you tailoring to? With Zoho Books, it's clear that they want to have better control, better departmental structures. Operations can have access, sales can have access, but like you said, laser point abilities, which is much better. So,
About also the customization, something that I'm doing in all my companies, you will have an account. The account can have multiple deals.
yeah,
In the invoice, on the invoice, I want to
yeah,
know the invoice, the opportunity. Which opportunity sold this invoice? Not
yeah,
only the account. And therefore I can create better reporting. In QuickBooks and Xero and other software, you are limited to the finance world, which is a silo. It doesn't click in my brain that 2026 we are still working with 2019 type of accounting. Doesn't work.
Yeah. I think Zero's main personality is deal with the marketplace. So go to the marketplace, find an app that works for you to restrict certain functions. So that could be like, a float card, so a credit card management system. Go externally instead of improving us because we work. Keep in mind, if I'm not mistaken, Zero is one of the first organizations to actually do a bank feed internally. So their bank feeds are actually managed internally instead of a third party. It's a very strong system. So they do have a lot of pros that really put themselves in the front of the marketplace and make them the unique player. And they're very confident with the growth. So unlike all the other platforms, they're going with what the customers want to see versus applications like QuickBooks Online, for example, where we've seen some changes last year. We're like, who on the team thought this was a good idea from a UI perspective, for example. So um, I think we could continue down the list, to the next point.
Yep.
Um, Maybe we'll talk about automated focused workflows. I think that'll be a good one. So
Sure.
um, I think a big part of what I'm about to say, which I think a lot of people agree with me, is when you think about workflows, you think about structure and consistency. So I personally think doing workflows on a much more immature system like Xero and QuickBooks is not the greatest advantage. It doesn't provide as much value and it's also limited. So going down the Zoho Books route, where you can create custom functions within Zoho Books, you have full access to APIs. You could do a lot with the ecosystem with Zoho One. Your ability to do more is there. So I think automation wise, it just helps with month end close. It helps with financial reporting. It helps with a lot of different tools that help us just button things up internally in finance and operationally, right? So having everything in there. So I don't want to touch on this too early, but this idea kept coming up in my head as a big problem. When we look at Zoho versus Xero,
Hmm.
just let's talk about financial reporting. You and I talk about this in a lot of our videos. You want to segment your payroll by verticals, right? Being able to understand by division, by distribution, T&E codes, all a variety of different codes that will be able to help you report and understand your numbers better. Xero has the ability to do that. They're, they could do, let's say, departments and regions, but the issue here is that they could do up to 4 segments, but only use 2 per line. So you have these tools available, but they're limited. Whereas in Zoho Books, you can have a bunch of them. They all have the ability to code to them. So you could do it on the back end at the same time. So there's no restrictions. It's like a lot easier to grow into and be able to hit the, let's call it sub $50 million mark in revenue and be able to report nicely to your board
Of
members
course.
and shareholders. So I think it's a really, really good system when we talk about this workflow part. We have to really, really keep in mind the finance structure and what it brings to the table.
And in terms of automations and workflow on the Zoho side, obviously it's you can do whatever you want. You have the workflows. You have the loose scripting that can be done. Anything that you can think of. One system automating another one, and so on. So the automation side is super super strong on the Zoho side.
Yeah. And let's go back to that point that you made about the fireplace company, because I do want to touch on that, right? They come to a place where they have to manufacture. And I think it's really important to think about, well, now that we're ready to manufacture, what system do we use? Now, QuickBooks and Xero cannot do proper manufacturing. Zoho Books can't do proper manufacturing. But let's just say the company can do assemblies. In the specific example, sorry, and video, we're talking about Xero versus Zoho Books. When we look at assemblies, Xero has the ability to do inventory on a very, very basic level versus Zoho Books tacked onto inventory, Zoho inventory, which is again out of the systems that are in the same ecosystem. They work on the same wavelength. There's no delay in anything, right? So they're working and operating at the same time. Zoho Books can then do assemblies. It could do warehouses. It could do user restrictions by warehouse. This is like one or two steps
That will
further
be
than
the Zoho
Xero.
inventory app, right?
Product. Yeah, that's right. So when you look at, you go back to Xero and you're like, hey, I just need to add another warehouse. Like, sure, we could do inventory, but I have another location and we have some problems, limitations. We can't segment users by those two locations. So it's a problem. Now, when you go into Zoho inventory, you then have an app that's dedicated for your inventory team, whether that's procurement, even some warehousing. Like you could do barcode scanning, things that are getting to that next level, bin locations, assemblies, batch tracking, serial numbers. These are now like names that are unfamiliar to the other software markets like FreshBooks, Xero, and QuickBooks, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I think it's in combination, the product just kind of takes the next leap of, hey, we can really be your almost enterprise level software.
So I think it's connecting to what we discussed before. The question is when to move to the next application or next finance application. It's really when you are feeling that you can't grow your business because your finance system is limiting you. And this
Correct.
limiting factor needs to be solved before you can go and let's do manufacturing. Or you will do manufacturing without tracking anything, which that's a suicidal move.
Yeah. I agree with you completely. Like, just think about landed cost for a second. You have freight that's associated with bringing inventory to your system and then moving it between warehouses. That in itself is a massive value add. For those people who are listening that understand this kind of lingo, this is uncomparable to anything that's on the market for small to medium size. Again, you could plug things in. We're not saying you can't, but then you're relying on systems, and you and I talk about this a lot in the previous video, where we're relying on connectors. We're relying on, and those can be expensive, right? All the Zapiers of the world, and they break. They have problems
They
sometimes
break
here
all
and
the
there,
time.
right?
Yeah.
So when you have it in the same ecosystem and it's on the same backbone of Zoho Books, like Zoho Finance is a whole variety of apps. Zoho Books is the backbone. And when you add Zoho Expense, for example, unlike Float or Concur or any other applications externally for other software, when you add Zoho Expense, it is literally on top of the Zoho Books
Same
database.
database. It's one
Exactly,
database with the tokens to different applications. One
which is
credit card
wonderful.
being loaded, and you can share it with other apps.
That's right. So you have the ability to approve an expense report and it shoots the data right into the system at the same time because it's connected. There's no APIs, there's no syncs, nothing, right?
So that takes us to the next segment, which is integration with finance tools,
That's
and
right.
expense management was one of them. Uh, do you know if there is any subscription model in Zero that you can work with subscriptions?
Subscriptions, no, not to the same degree as Zoho Finance, where we have billing and Zoho subscriptions, where we can
Hmm.
have dynamic add-ons. We can have automation pushing certain things to the actual contract,
You can sell
updating the contract.
online. You can sell
Exactly,
store. Hmm.
right? So you have different databases that can push data towards the billing side, not to the degree that you can do it flexibly, in a flexible manner within Zoho Finance. Um, on that same note, like just talking about everything that we just talked about, when we talk about controls and user access and limiting and reporting, the finance integrations that are available on the Zoho book side, like Zoho Expense, you can limit the T&E codes and request your team that it's a mandatory field to fill in. I don't understand unless you use marketplace providers in Xero. I don't understand how you could do that there to the same degree and the same professionalism as you could with Zoho. I think
And
that
how,
in
how is it
general, yeah,
helping a business owner?
just be able to not avoid anything, right? Not have any missed cost that's allocated to meals and entertainment and not know who the hell spent it, right? Or who was
So you,
part of
you
it or
create like a playbook that employees must follow some step-by-step approach or enter specific
exactly.
information so they won't bypass your guidelines.
Exactly. Like you could create a bunch of different policies, you could create a bunch of different limitations and custom fields that are mandatory in expense reporting, right? Approval hierarchies. These are really, really nice. You could do approvals in Xero. It's very limited in terms of what you could do with it, but I think on the Zoho Books and Finance side, you have just more capabilities. Yeah.
Okay. Now, the next point will be online platforms. So let's say that if you want to sell something online with Zoho Books or Zoho Checkout, which is part of the world of the Zoho Books, you can easily do so. Do you have any online abilities with Xero to sell online?
You do tons. I mean, again, we're talking about limited functionality. So you can't do the same degree as a Shopify integration, which Zoho Finance can do. That is like super, super nice, where you can have UPS connected or Shippo or Easy Ship, different shipping applications connected to Zoho inventory to produce picking slips, packaging the boxes, doing the proper, work that comes into the inventory side and the fulfillment side. That's where the limit is. But yeah, sure, you can
Which
have
is like
different.
the Xero marketplace. Same, no?
Exactly. Yeah. I feel like the zero marketplace is again, you're adding more platforms to the marketplace, but you cannot do the same level of control within the accounting system because I just mentioned a couple things that are more high level inventory management. So shipping out of different warehouses, right?
And
Automatically,
it,
that's
it
not
makes
possible.
sense. It
Yeah.
makes sense. So the integration can use what you currently have in the software. It can do more than that.
Yeah, like even EDI capabilities, like Zoho does have the option to do that and the capability to do EDI. And I think that that's massive. That's a very, very different space to play with.
What is
Um,
EDI?
Electronic data interchange, so interface. So it's like essentially big players are using these tools, right? The McKessons of the world, the big distributors of the world, they have these connectors that plug into warehousing systems and specific like procurement systems that help us be able to push data into the system in and out. Okay. So I think it's a very good tool to have. Um, and have the ability to access, especially when we look at companies that are growing pretty rapidly. I think it's really, really nice. Um, but I'll tell you what's an interesting thing. With Xero having more marketplace capabilities, you do see that people, again, owners are gravitating towards it first and they get the bells and whistles. Oh, I could just plug and play a whole bunch of different things. That's wonderful. But once you start to grow and start to say, okay, well, I need more people on the finance, I need better controls, that's when you start to hit the limits.
Yep. Yeah. And
That's kind of the bottom line here.
many businesses are when they're crossing few $100,000, usually the business requires a little bit more than what they can do.
Yeah,
In
yeah, I agree.
but you know what's funny enough? What I see that business owners are doing, which obviously I can't judge anyone, but the way that they're functioning is when they hit a limit, they're trying to create a bypass to the limit instead of fixing the limit. Probably
Band-aids.
because all of us are small business owners. We are always overwhelmed with a billion things, and you need to choose your words. But I do think that by not solving a problem that you know that's going to limit your growth, it's a problem. It's like, as we
Yeah.
said before, you need to now to do manufacturing. You don't have the ability to do so. So let's try Excel,
I was just gonna say the E
right?
word, but you took it out of my mouth. Yeah. Yeah. Band-aids
Right.
on band-aids, less control, less control. So you're kind of going, well, hey, we started with all these marketplace, we're going great, things are connected, we're plugging in, and then as soon as you hit a little roadblock, you're going backwards. And you don't realize how much backwards you're going because you're losing costs, you're losing control, you're losing tons of money on the way there. And Excel, we know, like everybody who watches this call who uses Excel, I don't care how bundled up your Excel file is, there's going to be a gap. And we all know this. So we try to
Of
really
course.
fix it and try to tighten it up. But we know at some point the inevitable step is here where it's like, okay, let's put this into gear and actually have the wheels moving.
In We'll give you just an example. So let's say with our business in 2024, we saw that businesses they are looking for Zoho developers. So they're coming to us, they need a Zoho developer, and we giving them the Zoho developer for a few hours and then a few hours. And then we said, you know what, we need to have a recurring business here. So the same developer and the same account manager and the same project manager and the same QA tester will be assigned to the same customer and they can serve him on a monthly basis, which means we need to create some kind of a recurring business. We didn't have
Yeah.
recurring business back then. Imagine that I would still be on QuickBooks. I can't really create the business solution without the right tools, which means I will
Yeah.
probably say I will defer it. But now most of our business is recurring business because we did have the tools and we did it in the right way because Zoho gave me the ability to execute my business plan.
Yeah.
So now we have an execution plan that is running. This execution, this subscription is pushing to Zoho projects, a project plan. Everything is moving based on the finance system.
Yeah. And we're not just talking about finance here. Let's make something really clear because I think people that join these calls, they go, well, it's finance. Like, oh, it's just finance. Finance is operations. So
Yeah, yeah.
you just touched on Zoho projects. That means timesheets. That means managing specific tasks. That means budgets. That means reporting on a job basis. How much time do we spend? Losses, gross profit, all these things. It's always operations and finance. And then you got sales and finance. Every single department's connected in the business. So I agree to your
HR,
point,
recruiting, everything
right?
is finance. I'm now connecting also more and more. I'm connecting marketing with finance.
Yeah.
So when I have a
Campaign pricing.
campaign,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
right. Even, funny enough, we have a customer that is always bragging to me that he never spends money on marketing, which we also don't spend money on marketing, but he has like 10 people working on marketing campaigns, newsletter, blog, social media, videos, and so on. So
Still a
tell me
cost.
something.
Yeah.
This $750,000 a year, is it free? I'm not sure I get it. And he's always saying it's free, it's free. I'm saying it's not free. You're paying $750,000 a year. This is a big chunk of money for a company with 65 employees.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's lots of money.
I agree.
So whenever we're creating content, because everything we do is organic, I will never say free. We create organic content. I do assign every campaign will have a UTM which will bring which campaign brought the lead. And when we create the content, publish it, and so on, there is a time tracking for each campaign. So I know campaign X cost me $375. In return, we got zero. Whatever we created here was a loser. Let's learn from it. Let's
Yeah.
not repeat this mistake again.
It's amazing. So much value, by the way, because I think a lot of people that's the next, right? Imagine trying to do this with a zero platform. Then you're like trying to figure things out. You're using Excel offline tools to really map things together to make sure that they all align. Our marketing spend by job. Yeah, I could do it online. I could get it from this vendor and I could get my data sheet from that one and then put it together. It's just you're going to hit a roadblock. I couldn't agree more with you.
Absolutely. Having the right tool is very important. Uh, so next we are going to talk about CRM integrations
Yeah.
specifically. On the Zoho side, for people that don't know, whenever you have Zoho CRM, you can integrate the accounting system with Zoho CRM. The bare minimum will be whenever I'm selling something, I can create a schedule of payments. So let's say 4 payments, deposit, second milestone, third, and final. Each one of them will have an amount. I click on a button. All those will be created as invoices in Zoho Books. When the first invoice will be live invoice for the customer to pay the deposit, the rest of the invoices will be drafts, which means those invoices will sit in the accounting system. I will not pay taxes on them. I will use them internally as account receivables. And then every time I'm running through the project, I will activate those milestones. This is a super basic kind of integration. More interesting integrations with subscriptions. I can initiate a subscription model. I can create add-ons on this subscription. Bunch of things can be done. I can create, as I said before, with the marketing, I can create expenses and log time against it. There is no limit on the integration level with the Zoho Books and so on. What's going on the Xero side?
crickets. Not to the same extent, right? Like you can do all the CRM basics of adding the company and maybe adding an invoice. But again, what you say
But
is
it's all
that extra.
custom, right? There is no
Yeah,
native
like
integration.
there again, you could go through the marketplace and see what's available, but it's fairly limited,
It's
is what I'll
crap.
say.
It's crap.
It's
People that
garbage for the
coming
most part.
with creating using third-party integrations, they'll always break. They
Yeah,
always have issues. They create
agreed.
a duplicates. One salesperson work on the account, another salesperson works on the same account, but it's just been created in a different way in the system. Horrible.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen your team do some incredible stuff with the Zoho CRM and book side, and I've seen it you guys do it on an enterprise level too. So going from your CRM to enterprise, like priority, it's insane. I mean, like you can do like the job side, you create a project, assign the
Yeah.
records to the project on the back end, right? Do the tags, do the distribution, the cost centers on the back end. It's the options are very unlimited, I think, on your end with your capacity and your team. So I think going down this path, it's a no-brainer. Like CRM integration for you guys is a piece of cake. It's a lot of work, but
Easy.
it's work that pays off for the business owners. Because again, if you go down the same path of us talking about this, and let's be frank, there are options. There's Salesforce. There's all the other ones. They're crazy expensive, and
Expensive. Yeah.
you know this world better than I do on the CRM side. I don't think that anything competes price to per dollar per actual outcome with Zoho
With
CRM
Zoho, no.
and Zoho Finance and or Priority, right? So, I mean, I just even just the retainers. So, right? So getting like requesting for deposit and putting that in the financials properly under customer deposit GL or unearned revenue, have that process automated and be able to send out a retainer to request a payment. Once it's paid, your team made sure that the system has a code that it pushes it back to the CRM so the salesperson knows that the deposit has
It's
been paid.
paid. Yeah.
Just that communication right there,
It's
it's
priceless.
it's so insane, right? So I
Yeah.
do think that the value add is there. There's no debating it.
Look, my passion is small to medium-sized businesses. That's where I feel that I can bring the most value. And for this audience, Salesforce, NetSuite, HubSpot, they're way too expensive. It's not about many people say, oh, the license is just $100. It's not the license.
Yeah.
The license is irrelevant. You're getting a bunch of fields. You go to Salesforce. Again, nothing against Salesforce. They're awesome. They are the GOAT for enterprise, right? So
Yeah.
nothing
Yeah.
wrong with them. They're awesome. I don't want anyone to think I'm
Yeah.
smacking them, right? They're great. But when they're selling to small businesses, 10, 20, 30 employees business, the business will say, I need to do this, this, and that. And they will say, sure, no problem, you can do it. And
Yeah.
I want to do this and that, which also happened to me in Repair Care, in the company that I sold. They can do anything. And they say, awesome, let's do it. I'm buying the licenses. Now I'm committed to a year. And then I call support and I say, guys, or no call, you can't call them. You send an email or something. And then they're telling you, yeah, you need a partner to do it for you.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So, oh, I thought I'm buying that. No, no, you're not buying it. You need a partner to do it. And
Yeah.
now
You reach for your
you
wallet.
go, how much?
Yeah.
So this section will be $65,000. This is 120. This is 240. This is like what? I'm going to put like $500,000 for that?
Yeah.
So that's the problem, right? This is why we are
And again, for enterprise,
concentrating
it makes
only on
sense,
Zoho.
right? So for enterprise, it makes sense. If you got the cash,
Yes,
you're in a half a billion
but my
dollars,
audience is
makes
not
sense.
my
Yeah.
audience are not 5,000 employees companies.
Yeah. Yeah.
We have companies up to 1,500 employees. We
Right.
are not in the enterprise world.
Yeah.
We have some companies with 10 employees, 5 employees, 50 employees, 300 employees.
Yeah.
We
Which is still
don't have
complicated, but
enterprise.
it's not, yeah, there's no use case for you to go to Salesforce. And by the way, the same applies to NetSuite. They have an incredible, Oracle has an incredible sales team that sells NetSuite to, sub 10 user companies, sub 10 finance users. So these could be like 50 employee businesses. If you don't need NetSuite, there's no need to go down that path. it's a monster system and it might not be necessary. And bang for the buck, when you go down the partner side, they're selling it like the sales forces, right?
Yeah, but also
So
you need a huge maintenance team with NetSuite because you can't
that's
just
right.
run it,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? So you have
That's
another
right.
few bodies that you need to have. Yeah. Anyway,
Fun
this is
times.
an enterprise game. Never was my game. I don't, I have zero love for this world. I, I
We do.
want I want to contribute to small and medium-sized businesses.
Agreed.
This
Yeah.
is where I feel that I can give some benefit. The last point will be the 2026 roadmap. Is there anything that you know about those two worlds, where they're
Yeah.
going?
I think Zoho Books is really focusing on the business owner. So they're focusing on where can we bring the biggest value to the business owner and give them access to certain things that can help them make decisions. When you look at Xero, they're staying course. For example, Ramp, right? A really big product that's coming out of the US. It's really, really being pushed right now. These are credit cards, these are financing tools, these are expense reporting tools, kind of like Float, kind of like Brex in the US. These kinds of tools, marketplace, right? So when you look at Xero, they're focusing on marketplace, they're focusing on AI, ShmAI, all that stuff. Everybody's trying to say that word right now. So I
It's a
think
big world with not too
it's,
much behind it.
yeah, for now. I mean, it's growing so crazy every single week, but I think that between the two, Zoho Books is focusing more on growth, development, structure, business owner growth in terms of numbers and being able to manage the team. Xero is like, hey, we're going to stick to what we know, smaller. This is the market that we're in.
It feels like
Very
they
similar
don't
to,
want to progress. They want to stay in the very small businesses.
yeah, if you
Do
think
you
about
also
it, they're
have this
bumping up.
feeling?
Yeah, 100%. They're exactly like QuickBooks, bumping up the prices, right? QuickBooks on the enterprise side, in terms of their price
Yeah,
point,
they every
is
3 weeks
220 a
you
month,
have a new
you know?
part. Yeah.
Yeah, 220 a month US. They're bumping up the prices and they're staying with the same market because they're getting better value. Whereas Zoho is kind of going towards we're going to be behind the business owner. Here's another app. Here's another thing that can save you time, right? So just
And
a
the prices
completely
didn't
different
change
approach.
for a long time with Zoho. I think
Yeah, I
last
mean,
bump was
one
five
time.
years ago.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's wonderful. So I think it's not a debate here, is what I'll say, of
I,
where those two companies are going.
I think so too. I'm a raving fan. I like Zoho as a company. I like what they're doing. There is no perfect company, but they are really trying to be there for business owners. They are
Yeah,
providing fantastic solutions, having everything in one place. This is, an unbeatable offer. It's very nice.
agreed.
And $37, a month for Zoho One with over 40 business applications, CRM, finance. Anyway, I like it.
Yeah, it's
I
crazy.
like.
I always hear that number and I'm like, I don't know. They should that value is just crazy,
Yes.
right?
Okay. So Simon, thank you very much for your time.
Anytime,
Appreciate
it was my
your
pleasure.
feedback. And
Always.
guys, if you got value from this session, subscribe, like, button, bells, dove, smoke signals, do whatever it needs to be done. So YouTube will give us some love and will help us push this video forward. Thank you very much.
It
We'll
was
see you
my
in the next
pleasure.
session.